For years, Arsenal were a sleeping giant, a club with history, identity, and a style of football that once dominated English football with elegance and fearlessness. But after the Invincibles faded into memory, Arsenal slowly became a symbol of almosts. Almost contenders, almost champions, almost elite, while for an entire generation of fans, the Champions League became a painful reminder of how far the club had fallen behind Europe's true giants. The exits were brutal. Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Monaco, Sporting Lisbon, every season seemed to carry hope, but every season ended with the same question: could Arsenal ever truly return to the top? Then came the rebuild, and unlike the instant success projects football has become used to, this one was slow, painful, and sometimes difficult to believe in. Arsenal weren't building around expensive superstars or quick fixes. They were rebuilding through culture, youth, discipline, and belief, and standing at the center of it all was Mikel Arteta, a former Arsenal captain who understood exactly what the club had lost over the years. Not just trophies. Standards. When Arteta arrived, Arsenal were drifting. The dressing room felt fractured, the squad looked unbalanced, and the atmosphere around the Emirates Stadium had become tense and frustrated. Expectations had collapsed, and for the first time in decades, Arsenal no longer looked like a club capable of competing with Europe's elite. But throughout the chaos, Arteta kept repeating something that many people mocked at the time. Trust the process. For a while, it sounded like nothing more than a slogan fans used to survive disappointment, but slowly, the signs of change started appearing. Young players began emerging, and suddenly Arsenal had a new generation ready to carry the club forward. Bukayo Saka became the face of the rebuild, Martin Odegaard evolved into the creative heartbeat of the team, William Saliba transformed the defense with composure far beyond his age, and Gabriel Martinelli brought speed, fearlessness, and unpredictability into every attack. Then came Declan Rice, arriving not just as a signing, but as the missing piece Arsenal had been searching for in midfield. And suddenly, Arsenal were no longer rebuilding. They were hunting. The Premier League title races changed everything because even when Arsenal fell short, the world could see something dangerous forming in North London. This team was becoming faster, stronger, smarter, and mentally tougher, while the Emirates Stadium slowly transformed into one of the loudest and most intimidating atmospheres in Europe again. Then came the Champions League run, and this time it felt different. This wasn't luck, and it wasn't a favourable draw carrying Arsenal forward. This was Arsenal standing toe-to-toe with Europe's elite and refusing to blink under pressure. The big European nights had finally returned to North London, the Champions League anthem echoed through the Emirates again, and for the first time in nearly 2 decades, Arsenal looked like a club that truly belonged on football's biggest stage. Every great Champions League winning side has defining moments where belief turns into destiny. Maybe it's a late winner, maybe it's a defensive masterclass, or maybe it's a comeback that changes the mentality of an entire squad forever. But somewhere during this campaign, Arsenal crossed a psychological line. They stopped hoping they could win the Champions League and started expecting to win it. And if Arsenal complete the journey and lift the trophy, then the Ballon d'Or conversation changes instantly because football history remembers Champions League winners differently. The Ballon d'Or has never been just about statistics. It's about moments, legacy, emotion, and narrative, and no narrative in world football would be bigger than Arsenal returning to the top of Europe after years in the wilderness. The first Arsenal player who would immediately enter that conversation is Declan Rice because this is exactly the kind of tournament that transforms elite footballers into global icons. Rice already carries himself like a leader, but a Champions League winning campaign would elevate him into another category completely. What makes Declan Rice special is that he controls games without needing glamour or flashy moments. He destroys attacks, wins duels, drives the team forward, organizes the midfield, and somehow becomes calmer whenever the pressure gets bigger. In modern football, midfielders rarely receive Ballon d'Or recognition unless they dominate the biggest matches, but if Rice controls a Champions League final, people will remember it forever because football fans always respect players who make impossible games look easy. And over the course of Arsenal's rise, Rice has quietly become the foundation of everything this team does. Then there's Bukayo Saka, the player who represents far more than talent to Arsenal fans. He represents identity. There's something powerful about watching a homegrown player carry a giant football club back toward greatness, because every elite club dreams of producing someone like Saka, calm under pressure, creative, relentless, and consistently decisive in the biggest moments. What makes Saka even more dangerous is that he doesn't rely on theatrics or unnecessary drama. He simply delivers. Goals, assists, match-winning moments, again and again. And if Arsenal win the Champions League with Saka scoring or assisting in the final, his Ballon d'Or chances would explode overnight, because attacking players naturally capture football's imagination. Fans remember the players who decide finals, the players who create magic when the world is watching, and Saka has already shown he can handle pressure that many players. What makes his story even stronger is how long Arsenal fans have watched him grow. From academy prospect, to Europa League teenager, to England international, and now potentially one of the best footballers in the world, Saka's rise feels deeply personal to Arsenal supporters. Football has always loved emotional narratives, and few narratives in modern football are stronger than Bukayo Saka leading Arsenal back to European glory. Then comes the wildcard in the Ballon d'Or conversation, David Raya. Goalkeepers rarely receive serious Ballon d'Or attention because football naturally focuses on goals, highlights, and attacking superstars. But occasionally, a goalkeeper produces a season so dominant that the sport simply cannot ignore it. That's where Raya enters the picture. Modern goalkeeping is no longer just about making saves. It's about controlling matches, building attacks, managing pressure, and reading danger before it fully develops, and Raya has quietly become essential to Arsenal's entire system. But history remembers goalkeepers differently when they produce iconic performances in finals, because sometimes a single save changes everything. One save can change a final, a season, or even an entire legacy. If Raya delivers a legendary performance in the final against elite attackers, his reputation would skyrocket instantly, because the image would become immortal. The save, the roar from the crowd, the disbelief, and the realization that one man kept Arsenal alive on the biggest night in club football. But the fascinating part of Arsenal's rise is that none of this success would belong to just one superstar, because this team was never built around ego. It was built as a collective machine where every piece matters. Martin Odegaard controls games like a chess master, William Saliba defends with terrifying composure, Gabriel fights through every duel like his life depends on it, Martinelli attacks defenders with chaos and courage, and Ben White brings intelligence and personality into every battle. And maybe that's why Arsenal feel different from many modern super teams. They feel connected. Fans see themselves in this team. The chemistry feels genuine, the celebrations feel real, and the hunger feels authentic. That emotional connection matters because football is emotional before it is logical, and Arsenal's return to the elite would resonate across the entire sport. For older fans, it would feel like restoration. For younger fans, it would feel like discovery. An entire generation grew up hearing stories about Arsenal's glory years without ever truly experiencing them, and if Arsenal conquer Europe, everything changes instantly. The perception of the club changes globally, elite players suddenly dream of joining Arsenal again, sponsors grow bigger, the aura returns, and perhaps most importantly, fear returns. Opponents would stop seeing Arsenal as an exciting young team. They would start seeing champions. And that psychological transformation changes everything, because the hardest step in football is not becoming competitive, it's becoming inevitable. The greatest teams in history create inevitability. Manchester United under Ferguson, Barcelona under Guardiola, Real Madrid in the Champions League, those teams walked onto the pitch already believing victory belonged to them. And Arsenal are now chasing that final transformation. Because this Champions League final would represent far more than 90 minutes of football. It would represent years of pain, years of ridicule, and years of rebuilding while rivals celebrated trophies and mocked the process. People laughed at Arsenal for trusting young players, laughed at Arteta for demanding patience, and laughed at the idea that this project could ever bring Arsenal back to Europe's elite. But football changes quickly when belief becomes reality. And if Arsenal lift the trophy, the same people who doubted them will suddenly call it genius, because history only remembers winners. And if Arsenal become champions of Europe, then the Ballon d'Or race becomes a reflection of that achievement. Declan Rice would symbolize leadership, Bukayo Saka would symbolize brilliance, and David Raya would symbolize resilience, three completely different stories connected by one historic achievement. Because the Ballon d'Or has always been bigger than individual talent alone. It rewards players who define eras, shape history, and deliver when football is watching. And nothing would capture the football world's attention more than Arsenal winning the Champions League after years in the wilderness. For Arsenal fans, it would not just be another trophy. It would be validation,